Perfect. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's public information session regarding the site plan control application for 8201 Campeau Drive. This meeting is being hosted by the Councillor's Office. Before we begin, we'd just like to start with a land acknowledgement. Ottawa is built on the unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The City of Ottawa honors the peoples and land of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. The City of Ottawa honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. So tonight's meeting will proceed as follows. We'll begin with opening remarks from your ward councillor, Kathy Curry. Then we'll turn to a presentation from the applicant, Voten. We're joined by Joey Theberge, president of Theberge Homes, Jeremy Silbert, director at Theberge Homes, Scott Alain, senior planner at Voten, and Evan Saunders, planner at Voten. City staff will not be in attendance tonight. Recent provincial legislation and corresponding amendments to the pre-consultation bylaw have amended timelines within which staff must render a decision on an application. This information session is not required by the city in the application process and has been provided at the discretion and agreement of the applicant. Following this, the floor will open to questions from the public. Individuals wishing to ask a question can do so by using the raise hand function or by submitting questions in the chat. Those raising their hands will be queued and we will unmute you, and then you'll be given 3 minutes to formulate and ask a question. You'll be notified when you have 30 seconds left. We'll be alternating between written and oral questions. And when typing questions into the chat, you can just direct them to either myself or to Nick Leonard from the Kanata North Office, and we'll ask them aloud to the applicant who we have on the call. Any outstanding questions can also, like after the presentation and after the meeting, rather, can be directed to the counselor's office, and we'll help facilitate an answer. All right, Councillor Curry, please go ahead.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks a lot, Peter, for organizing this, planning this, and Nick, and being here for support and making sure this goes smoothly. Really big thanks to anybody who's on this call. The way this is situated right now, I can't see everybody on the call, but for the Kanata North residents or just interested residents, thanks for attending. If you're watching this after the fact in our recorded version, thank you for taking an interest in the developments that are happening in Kanata North. It's quite an exciting place. A lot going on, and with as Peter mentioned, with a lot of the planning changes, a lot more to come. So I really appreciate when people attend or watch these recorded versions of the presentation online, and we will be putting this on the website for those of you who are here. So if you want to watch it again or if you've missed something, as Peter said, it is recorded and will be up on the kanatanorth.ca website. Big thank you to Joey Theberge. Joey is also the developer who built the woods there across from Best Buy at Centrum, a beautiful building. This one looks to be quite lovely as well. Thanks also to Jeremy, Scott, and Evan for attending this. As Peter indicated, the planning world has changed, and there isn't a requisite, like it isn't required that we hold these information sessions. It isn't mandatory that planning staff or developers or any of their support staff attend or even do these presentations. So we are always appreciative. Thank you very much. We are interested and we like to know what's going on in our community. So we really appreciate you taking the time with us here tonight to walk us through what the plans are. And as Peter said, there's lots of time afterwards if you have more questions. But just thanks a lot to everybody. And I look forward to hearing about this development at 8201 Campeau Drive as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Maybe if it's all right, I could take the floor to just go through a bit of a presentation here. So, as Peter said, my name's Scott. I'm an urban planner. We're the agent for the applicant, which is Theberge Homes here. For the benefit of the people watching the recording, I will go through a bit of a presentation, but after that, I'm hopeful that we can have a bit of a dialogue given the smaller group we have here. So as you can see on the screen, we have a rendering of the project. I'll get into a bit more detail, but to give a couple high-level remarks on it. So it's a six-story building that's classified as mid-rise under Ottawa's official plan. What we're doing here today, just to set this and make sure this is clear from the get-go, is we're not proposing to amend the zoning or official plan. So what we're seeking to do here is totally within the confines of what's already permitted in the zoning bylaw. So given what's presently permitted, we felt that we could accomplish something that meets the developer's intentions and provides a good supply of housing stock. So in terms of the building, it is classified as a mixed-use building. There's a retail component on the ground floor at the corner. It's imagined and hope to be something like a coffee shop, but this kind of thing will ultimately be determined once leasing is an option. So, getting into a bit of the context, I'm sure you're all well aware, but if you'll indulge me, so 8201 Campo Drive is a large property holding, and presently we're not looking to develop the entirety of the property holding, and I'll get into that a bit soon. But suffice it to say, it's flanked to the west and to the east by existing low-rise commercial, including a Canadian Tire, furniture stores, some smaller retail pads, and things of that element. It's got the river further to the west. Um, Currently, Didsbury terminates to the south where the 417 is, and Roger Nielsen Way also terminates. There's the Bridge Church, which is also south of the site. Um, and yeah, Campo Drive, as you'll all be aware, is subject to a recent extension that has helped connectivity in this part of the city become improved. We're in proximity to the recent expansions to retail north of the 417. And yeah, showing that a bit more puts this into context. You can see the proximity to the highway interchange, again, the broader retail in the area. The site would be classified as greenfield development. It's an existing parcel that's undeveloped, and basically a large block that ultimately will become broken up into smaller pieces, but that will take place over time. Looking at the official plan, so this was brought online in 2022. You could see the site in orange. So, of note, the site is on a minor corridor. So, minor corridors in this part of town are generally expected to be things like what we're proposing, which is a mid-rise building with ground floor active public realm and residential above. That's what the OP asks for. That's how the zoning's set up, and that's what we're seeking to comply with. Of course, as you're aware, currently there's a little bit of a different format that flanks the building with the low-rise commercial, but over time these sites too are expected to intensify based on official plan direction. There's also what's called the evolving corridor overlay, evolving neighborhood overlay, which basically signifies to people reviewing the official plan that this is an area where growth is supposed to happen and where change is supposed to happen. Um, Moving on. So this is what I was going to point to is um, the ultimate transit network in the official plan, which is based on the transportation master plan, does identify this as a site of a future O-train station. This is still preliminary. They've done some environmental assessments. They've reviewed where the corridor would go. And if I just go up to this diagram here, you can see where land is protected to the south of the site to allow for a corridor to take place. That being said, those details are not yet solidified. So, in terms of what we're doing here, it's expected that the remainder of the site will eventually grow to support higher densities than what we're proposing now. And once we have more information about that light rail transit, that's when we would investigate developing that. So we don't want to put the cart before the horse here. We want to start with what really suits the neighborhood now and what this part of Kanata requires in the short term, which is these kind of mid-rise typologies. So I know this is a little difficult to read, but basically the zoning, it's called mixed use center under the existing zoning bylaw, which essentially allows mixed use residential, commercial, and things of a scale that we're proposing. It has a maximum height of 34 meters, which once again, I'll remind you that we will comply with. The zoning bylaw is, I think, folks, if you're engaged in this process, you're probably well aware of the new zoning bylaw that's recently been recommended to council. So it does change what the zoning would be on the site. It doesn't constrain the site, but it does change. So you'll see it will become split zoned. So the top portion will become minor corridor two, and that makes sense when you recall that the underlying official plan designation is minor corridor. So that continues to support mixed use, ground floor retail, and residential uses. It keeps the 34-meter height limit, which we're keeping within. The southern part would be neighborhood mixed use, which is a different format of zoning, and it's expected that if a transit station comes online, that the zoning might change or intensify, whether developer led or whether city led. So, getting into the proposal in a bit more detail, and I'll zoom in on this one a bit. So, we're proposing this would be 342 units total, is the current expectation. You'll see there's a landscape plan that we've submitted as part of our application, and you'll see there's street tree planting proposed along the external sides. We're obviously complying with what the city has planned for the cycle track and the boulevard along Campo. Just zooming out here, this gives you a little bit more clear idea of how things would look along Campo Drive. You'll see we use punch balconies here, which kind of the intent is to break up the massing of the building and to um, allow for amenity that doesn't overhang into the public realm as much. Punch balconies basically just means that they indent into the building instead of project. This shows, and I'll get to it on the next slide, but this is also on Campo Drive, and you'll see there's basically two building massings, but they share a lobby and they share an underground parking garage. So the building is lessened in terms of its weight by breaking it up and still having connectivity and activity at the public realm. Uh, and then this is the other frontage on Taggart Road, which I'll get into in a moment. You'll see a change in balconies. Some are projecting, and you'll also have some segmented balconies as well. But I want to show the site plan now just to kind of illustrate a bit more of what's taking place here. So I think the next one is okay, we'll stick with this one. So access to the site is along Taggart Road. Basically, Campo Drive, and this is official plan direction, discourages any vehicle access. And so we haven't proposed any. So vehicles to access the site, they're going to go down, we're calling it Taggart Road at the time. It would be basically opened up as as an official city road. Just maybe I'll show you the context slide quickly to remind you what it looks like. So basically, this current driveway between these two properties is shared by both owners and would be opened up and expanded into a road that would eventually carry along both buildings. And that's where the access will derive from. So going back to this drawing, you see cars would come down Taggart Road, and then they would come and they would access the site along J Way here, where they could either enter the parking garage um, access. This is how you get into the parking garage um, to the north, or a surface parking area, which is where garbage collection would take place, visitor parking, moving, loading, and all of those elements. Um, Here is the link that I had referred to between the two buildings that provides connectivity. Otherwise, you'll see the courtyard area is occupied by various forms of outdoor amenity, planting, and then here we're not proposing cash in lieu of parkland. We're proposing to convey parkland to the city of Ottawa. We've shown parkland and we've shown what 15% conveyance looks like. We're still working with staff at the city to determine the timing of when that would be delivered and what that would look like. But we've indicated to the city that we will convey parkland as part of this development. You'll see the curvature of J Way here. It's imagined that long term in the future, eventually this roadway will continue all the way to Didsbury, but that would be subject to future development of the lands Again, we're waiting on that transit to be formalized before we're going to uh, extend into assessing those plans. Currently, we're looking at what is supported by the local context. Again, elevations just showing that breakdown of how the buildings are configured. I have a couple more slides here, another perspective. This is just to show how the parking is configured. So I'll go down one more. Um, so it's th three levels of parking. I was just trying to, excuse me, find where the access can be seen. I guess it would be up one. So yeah, you can't see well where the ramp plugs in, but basically it's a single aisle parking garage, and it treats both sites. You see a phasing demarcation. Those are construction phases. It's intended at this time that we would construct the building. We would construct phase one and then phase two in terms of the overall build out, but they would basically at this time be expected to be directly after one another. Um, that basically covers the main elements. To conclude, I'll just again say we're in for site plan control. Site plan control is a process the city has where whenever you're building, we call it a big building, so more than 12 residential units, the city requires you to go through site plan control to basically verify that all your garage accesses, snow removal, garbage collection, all these elements are sorted out before you go through the permit phase. So in terms of timeline, we're submitted to the city. It's deemed complete. That's why the public notification is out. And we're hopeful that in the next few months we could work through that process with staff. As you might know, there's no council. It doesn't go to council or planning committee. It just goes through staff approval. So if you have comments, you could direct them to staff, or I'm sure if you direct them to the councilor's office, they'll pass them onward. And that would be how you could have your voice heard formally in terms of this application moving forward. But in the interim, again, I think I've gone over everything, but if you want to pose some questions, I'm happy to move to that segment. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. Thanks so much, Scott. I'll just go through a couple things and then have people ask questions. So just want to remind residents, kind of as Scott mentioned, and as was mentioned before, this is a site plan control application. Site plan control process allows a city to influence land development so that it's safe, functional, and orderly. It's also used to ensure that the development standards are approved by the city and other agencies. Um, Pardon me, by the city and other agency. It's also used to ensure that the development standards approved by the city and other agencies are implemented and maintained. Building location, landscape treatment, pedestrian access, drainage control, and parking layout are a few of the items addressed during review. So yeah, just in terms of questions, just remind everyone wishing to ask a question that you can do so by using the raise hand function or by submitting the questions in the chat. Yeah, we'll go from there. Normally we do, like I say, a 3 minute timer and whatnot, but there's quite a small group this evening, so just ask that everyone be aware of others' time. So we'll open the floor to any questions. I'll first ask Nick. Did you have any in your chat at all?
No, I don't have any in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any hands up right away. Perfect. Yeah, Patty, I will unmute you there. Ask if you would like to unmute, and you can go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Can hear you now. That's perfect.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. This is very exciting. I may have missed, but when do you hope to start construction? All things being passed.
I'll maybe let the developer answer that. They'll have a clearer idea. But my short end understanding of it is as soon as possible. But I don't know if there's
Oh,
anything else to add to that.
okay. And I have
Oh,
a second question, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I see that. Oh, they muted back again. So I'll just assume that they agree. Go ahead with your second question.
Sorry, I'm just curious about how many resident or not residential, how many commercial spaces will be on the main level? You mentioned a coffee shop, but I assume that the whole ground level is retail.
Yeah, so I'll show you a floor plan just to give you an idea of how much of the ground floor is retail. I will say there is a decent amount of walkout units, so that would uh, obviously mean that we reduce the amount of retail. So actually, as you can see here, the commercial area is basically confined to the corner, and then the we have walkout ground floor units. Uh, excuse me, ground floor units. I don't believe all of them are walkouts along the frontage as well. I will say to your question about the number of spaces, the zoning bylaw calls for 9 commercial parking spaces, and we're providing 9 spaces. So that would be in the surface parking area we've proposed. So you see, I'm hoping it's clear enough, but you see there's C obviously stands for commercial, and then V would be visitor. So that would be the hope that if you're visiting the site, you don't have to necessarily deal with the underground parking. It would all be on surface. I realize when when you're working with Kanata, it tends to be the case that some surface parking there's space for, and it's also seen as desirable for tenants and visitors.
I could jump in a little bit here too, just on your first
Mhm.
question. It's Joey here
Yeah.
with the development. So our plan would be to start construction either late 2026 or just after the spring 2027. And to go with what Scott's saying about parking, the idea would be to have all quick service. Uber, Amazon would all stay on the surface parking as long as commercial, as well as quick drop and drop offs. And then all residents would be all underground. It'd be similar to our 180 Canada, which, you know, right now it's been a little difficult because cars are stopping on Canada Avenue. But once this probably the laneway is opened up, that's going to be the lay-by. There's room for between 6 and 8 cars for drop in, drop off around back as well. So it'd be very similar type of feel as that site.
Yeah, sorry. So my question was more about how many, not parking, but how many actual
Oh,
retail units there will be.
so how retail units? Thanks for clarifying, Patty. So the answer
Yeah,
there would just
sorry.
be one.
Oh,
Um,
just the one.
yeah, so just the
Okay.
corner there. Again, we're still working towards that point in terms of where there's an absorption rate that it can be expanded. We certainly expect as the big Campo site continues to develop, there will be more and more commercial as you have the transit come online where you have a lot more foot traffic and things like that. But this commercial space, in the short term, it may just service the building and adjacent tenants as well, and either to the east or west. But as more people start living in this area specifically, the idea would be that more commercial would be mixed in.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Patty, and to everyone for answering. Just a note, I know there was a little bit of an issue with the microphones and being able to mute and unmute. Everyone now has the ability to mute and unmute themselves. So good to go for when someone wants to answer a question. You don't have to wait for me to unmute you. Okay. I believe Nick has a question or two from the chat.
Yes, so one question is if J-Way was extended east to Didsbury, could it meet Didsbury right at the future Earl Grey extension under Terry Fox?
That's a good question, and one that we've been assessing. One thing that we want to ensure with this application in particular is that uh, we don't basically lock into something that might not make sense for the future viability of the site. But certainly, I can say that it's been explored how that could be possible. You know, in terms of the alignment, whether it would be desirable to, for example, have it come flush with the access to the Canadian Tire Plaza, um, or something like that. Certainly, it's being explored, and I mean, if you want to provide that comment in writing, we can think about it as we expand the site. But to put it to put it lightly, we haven't figured out what the road network will look like at that time. Our primary concern is that it's just appropriate and functional to service the garage and the surface parking.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Scott. And then next one being, will this be wood frame construction like the woods on Kanata Ave?
We're looking at both options right now, at wood frame or light gauge steel. So both are being looked at. We have another development out in the east end of town that we're just a little further along than this one, and we're gauging the viability of both options.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Joey. So that's all the questions from the chat here, Peter.
Perfect. Did anyone else have any other questions or anything, either for chat or that they wanted to raise their hand on? Okay, perfect.
I think Lucas is putting his hand up.
Yes, Lucas. Did you want me to read it out, or do you wanna go ahead? You want me to read it out?
Yes,
I
yeah.
got you. Okay, no problem. Perfect. Okay. So he says, I was, looking through the development documents for this project and saw an earlier document showed solar panels on the roof, an outdoor pool in the interior courtyard, and rooftop residential social area. Are these aspects of the development still being considered?
Yes, they are. They're all still viable options here. The pool and the outdoor amenity areas we feel is pretty important. The outdoor solar, it's just as in Wendy Canada Woods, where pretty much 90% of that rooftop is all solar panels being installed as we speak. The game plan would be continue with that mentality.
Yeah, and if it helps Lucas, just from a planning perspective, the approach here would be to ensure we satisfy the zoning in terms of what's required for amenity. So we are required to have some communal amenity, and we're in excess, frankly. But there is some flexibility down the road to determine what that looks like. But given from what I've heard from DeBarge Homes in terms of the tenants they're seeking, there's certainly going to be things like that, and that's why they're shown in some of the submitted plans.
Awesome. Did you have any follow-up on that at all, Lucas, or anything further you wanted to ask? Yeah, okay, perfect. I can let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we can hear you now.
I just so you said in the previously that people can unmute themselves. So would I mute myself, or I was gonna wait for your
Oh, beautiful. You're good. You're
yeah.
good to go.
So it's yeah. So like with that like the residential, like the social area on the roof, like is that considered, could it be like a little bit of a conflict for I know the residential, the Acadia is not that close, but like is that considered, like could be considered a if it's like hopefully that residents that are using it are not too rowdy, that do not causing commotion in their surrounding area, like it's, I don't know what is there any stats about uh if there's any roof amenity areas of residential buildings, if they could be, if there's not like people complaints about noise or some of that, it's, is there like, it seems like a neat idea, but I just didn't know if there's any stats about it, if there's if it's a smart idea or not.
Yeah, no, good question.
Right.
It's we keep these rooftops, they're just for the building's use, not for anyone outside of that building. It's just for the residents.
Mhm.
And it's always something that we have to monitor. I mean, there is bylaws in place, just as in a residential neighborhood, people in the backyard, if they're too rowdy, then there is bylaws in place to calm that down. And if we feel more rules have to be implemented, then you have to set bylaws and guidelines within the building as well. But in the experience, the last few buildings we have, usually the rooftops or the outdoor amenities aren't used after bylaw time. So after 9, 10 o'clock at night, they're not really used. And
Mhm.
yeah, so
Okay.
it usually goes pretty smoothly.
Yeah, and if I did not that recently, but I did look in the documents about for your development, and what's the ratio for the parking spots for the residential units? Is it like more than less one per unit, or is it one per one, if miss?
It's basically one to one. Yeah.
Okay.
It's yeah, 291 spaces for 342 units.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, it's that's nice. It's because I guess once you get to the other parcels of this development of your land, this whole area, I'm guessing you would might have less parts because it's right next to the LRT. Potentially, I guess they don't encourage more parking in the close to LRT. I'm guessing that's Kathy. I'm not sure if you can clarify that.
No, you're bang on that, and that's just the reality, right? Is like I was saying about putting the cart before the horse earlier. In terms of making this development viable, it would be a pressure on leasing and getting tenants if there was too little parking relative to people who don't have access to a transit station. However, once there is that accessibility, it then becomes more realistic from a business case perspective to propose less parking spaces, and certainly um, it would be the city's encouragement to do so. Um, just a little bit in the nitty-gritty, but from a geotechnical perspective, that it's pretty shallow soil where this building is being proposed, and in fact, they're doing additional blasting is required in order to get the depth to get the parking garage to support these units. So it's something that's seen as a priority here. But like to answer your question in a short way, yes, you could expect that moving forward, it's likely that there will be less parking and, taller buildings and less parking might be the what you could expect on the rest of the site.
And Lucas, just to you address part of that to me, it is a constant conversation at planning committee about how much parking is necessary, right? Because absolutely, one day we will see the LRT come through here and that will be accessible to people. But the reality is for people who live in Canada, even if they're not using their car because the LRT is close, they still want somewhere to store a car. So we've talked about parking as being more car storage than necessarily just parking because people are using their car 5 times a day. They just need somewhere to keep their car while they use the transit for most of their life. So, I mean, it is a constant conversation. We are seeing buildings go up downtown where there's no parking at all. And, I mean, the reality is for the developer trying to rent out those units, it is something that, they have to realize that some people might say, well, I can't live here then because I need somewhere to store a car, not necessarily use it all the time. So very good question, Lucas. I have some more questions as well. So, but if you have others, and because this is being recorded, I'm hoping that people ask enough questions that we can anticipate some of the questions that would be asked by people who are just viewing this later on. So go ahead with some others.
Yeah. One last one for now. It's that is that with that parcel that you want to hand over to the for the parkland, is there will be like some Engage Ottawa thing eventually, some about for the vote public consultation about how it's going to look like, the type of equipment and stuff of that, or is it going to be like already going to be determined what's going to be in that parkland, like a equipment or some play structure or some of that.
Yeah, so good question, Lucas. So the on one end, because we are dedicating it to the city, we're giving them the parkland, and it'll basically be up to the ward councillor and park staff exactly what the parkland looks like. What they did ask us to do, and what you see on some of the plans, is basically it's called a facility fit plan, and like the name suggests, it's to show what kind of facilities could fit on the parkland. So we've shown a little bit of a play structure and then some, open space and things like that. Like I said in my presentation, one thing that we're trying to make folks aware of is because there's a much bigger piece, we're still in talks with parks on do you want a small park now or do you want to work towards figuring out how we can have a big park down the road or how that park grows over time. We want to make sure that we're on board with that. So there's more to come on that, but certainly your counselor will be involved in the design of that park, and I do expect there would be notification as well to the community to get input on how that might look.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank
100%, Scott. Thanks for saying that for sure. We wouldn't have any park go forward without community consultation because community wants very different things now, Lucas. Like, I can't believe what I'm hearing people want, right? But, there's so many exciting new ideas that I would really want to hear from the community because we also look at what other parks, what are in other parks, right? So do we just repeat everything we already have just because that's what we put in parks, or we do something unique and creative, So anyway, definitely that would be a conversation with the community.
Yeah, just one little thing is that with this park, like if I may suggest, like because I see only one structure, like would it be like potentially like envisioned like one aspect of having a junior and a senior play structure, so like one for little kids and one for a little bit older kids, and like they're a little bit differently, or this is kind of not the small, it's this pretty small area. So, but if that's something that might be considered or not, I'm not sure. It's yeah.
I
Just
think anything would be considered. Certainly, if I'm involved in the consultation, I would like to see lots of different options. So some things that we don't normally see, even,
yeah.
not
Okay.
the same old, same old.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Lucas. I don't see any other hands up. Councillor Curry, you mentioned have a couple questions.
Yeah, usually we ask, and I don't know if you know this yet, but I think you might. But people often ask, how many one bedroom, two bedroom, three bedroom do you anticipate being in this building?
That's a good question. We're not quite finalized there yet, but we do go for a big mix. Like we will have some three bedrooms. I believe in Kanata, especially Kanata, that area, Kanata North, there are families. So having some three bedrooms is important. We'll have a few studios, but not as many as you'd have more in a, city center building. So we're probably in the, if I was just going to put a guess to it right now, I'd build 50% two bedrooms, 10, 15% three bedrooms, and the remaining 30% would be the one bedroom and bachelors.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, usually the answer is we're not 100% sure, but that's good to get a general idea. The other is people often ask about the trees. So the city definitely has this plan for trees. Is there anything else you're doing in landscaping that is above and beyond or different from what the city tends to require?
I'll show you our landscape plan. Just I'll put it on the screen. If you'll so the site is kind of mostly vacant from trees. There is a little bit of an orchard kind of to the east beyond the site that we're paying attention to. But as far as the site that's being developed, there's pretty much no mature trees. So we're starting from scratch a bit, but like I said, we're proposing trees in the public realm along the frontages. On one hand, that does kind of give the units a bit more privacy. It gives pedestrians shade, all those things. We're cognizant of where the parking garage footing is. Fortunately, it's mostly under the building. But yeah, we're also proposing trees towards the edges of the site and a large planting area, as you see on the screen there. But uh, yeah, pretty standard stuff in terms of what we're doing. It'll be, and this is again just the landscape plan showing what we're proposing for the park area. Um, yeah, I guess suffice to say it'll be an improvement over the current situation, but at this point we're just trying to basically fill in the site where trees can actually survive and thrive.
Okay, great. Anything we can do to add to our tree canopy is always a good thing. The other question people may ask if they're watching this is about the idea of the solar panels and what that would do for the energy use in that building. Like in Kanata North, we're always trying to make sure we have more and more power. Obviously, for our tech park, that there's high demands. So anywhere else that could be more green or offset. Maybe does anyone have a comment about what the solar panels would be for and how green this building would be?
I'll take that one. So in Canada, 1A Canada, this is the sort of same building, same sort of footprint in terms of a ratio of units over roof area. With that building is designed, and that solar system is designed to produce almost exactly as much electricity on site as is required in our peak periods. So It is a self-sustaining building. It's built under a grant program to help encourage electricity. So we will pull from the grid at times and push back into the grid as part of that system runs, but it is designed for the solar system to meet almost the entire needs of the building. So we are trying to do a green building. It's an all-electric building in that sense. We do have a gas service there just to support commercial, but it's an all-electric building, and we incorporate heat pumps as well as an energy efficient way to heat the building as well. Trying to make this.
Okay. The other question I get a lot at planning committee is how many bicycle parking spots there would be, and would there ever be spots for rideshare?
Yeah, we do have, we'll have rideshare just as if we're going to have that Kanata Woods as well. I believe we're going to have 2 rideshare cars permanently there, probably starting this spring. Where you always going to be one-to-one, try to bring one-to-one parking, bike parking to residents.
Wow. Okay. The only other thing I was going to ask you about is that, and we talked a little bit about this in our briefing, but our vision and understanding for the tunnel that we're building underneath Terry Fox is that the tunnel comes out to meet with Didsbury, and then you see how Didsbury is sort of like it stops, and then there's another section of Didsbury that stops. I'm wondering if there's any other conversations you've had with staff on how that will all go in the future.
So we did receive comments from staff on our first submission, the one that's public and that you folks have all reviewed. They didn't provide a lot of transportation comments. I know their department's pretty overworked right now, but I do think that it does kind of serve as a bit of a no-brainer, at least the way it looks, to continue that road, provide some additional flexibility in terms of circulation beyond Campo. But those discussions aren't that advanced. I do think that it would be part of a future phase where that J Way road we were talking about is no longer a nub and becomes an extended road. I think by that point, as you know, they're already doing this just construction, as you mentioned this morning, that will be well established, and it should be pretty clear what our options are to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Kind of mirrors what Scott was saying, that we haven't really finalized the master plan of the whole site. So once this tunnel, which I think is a great idea, this tunnel is going to get a lot of buses out of that intersection. We can then see how this is implemented, and then we can always adjust where our road network goes within our site and how it gets connected.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and thanks for that, Joey, because I've said to many residents who've asked about, why are they doing this tunnel in the first place? And it's hard for residents to think that, the city and developers build out for, like, they're thinking into the 100 years, like how will this all work 100 years from now, not just tomorrow. So, when you imagine all the build out of this, including your building, and then the next stages of whatever happens to that bigger piece of property with the LRT coming through the back of that, this will be an entirely different concept. The tunnel comes out to Didsbury, joins around, something else is developed across the street. And this is an entirely new way of getting around this whole area. So, it's great to see it build out like this, and then you can start, and hopefully the residents can start to see all the puzzle pieces sort of locking into place as to why things like a tunnel or, Didsbury ending right now, but having another named Didsbury Street over on this other side. Why is it we have that? Well, because this is about future planning, decades and decades out.
That's a good point. It's exactly why we don't want to come in right now with one big master plan, because we don't know how this is going to unfold. So when we do it, we want to make sure it's a well thought out plan.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions, Peter?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. Yeah, someone posted a question in the chat that I was going to ask myself. Are there any EV chargers planned for the garage as well? Piggybacking off of what Councillor Curry had said, and then question in the chat there.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to be supplying EV chargers. The exact amount we haven't finalized yet.
For sure.
Kanata Woods, I don't know. I think we're doing 20 EV chargers at Kanata Woods, Jeremy, either 10 or 20. So I can imagine with this building, it'll be a surplus of 20 in this building. As we know, as we get further along, the need for EV chargers is getting more and more.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Perfect. Yeah, Lucas, go ahead.
I sort of made it 2 questions, 2 parts of, but I think it'd be more for Kathy, if I may ask. Is it the Didsbury? It's like there's two sides on that the MTO yard. So it's like, would it be ever considered to be connected together, or is it intentionally to be not connected? Is it correct?
The end goal, Lucas, would be to connect it all up so that
Okay.
this would be an entirely different route, as I'm saying. You know, that MTO yard has just got an extension to first another number of years, which is
Yeah.
fine. It's great. It helps them make sure there's enough salt trucks and everything to do all the highways, right? But
Hmm.
but the end goal would be when that LRT comes through there, that there would be a whole bunch of other options, right? As Joey was saying, the buses to come out of Terry Fox and get onto Didsbury and come around to go on other routes. Like it would be ideal, right? It's
Yeah.
just, it will be so different when all of that comes into place. But ideally, yeah, Didsbury would join up.
Okay, yeah, because it just seems very oddly like it just a dead entity to get you can't go back on to the camper to get around to the so it just is it just not very fluid, I guess. So it's I guess if in the future will join up. The second thing is that I guess I might have thought about it when I attended the consultation for the tunnel thing under Terry Fox, but the thing I can just envision in my head is once it's getting built, there's going to be people like I don't know, I don't want to be like penalizing the teenagers, but under that bridge there will be people like loitering and spray painting on those walls. It just I can envision it's going to be covered with artistic art graffiti and on both sides. It's not going to be very pleasant. So is there a way that the city can avoid that? Because it just that I can envision there's that bridge that for the LRT under I think it's Kanata Avenue where the east westbound off ramp onto uh, Kanata Avenue Castlefine Bridge. There's that bridge. I think when I just briefly look over the edge of the bridge, I can see like people like with spray paint on that concrete wall underneath. So I think I feel like it's gonna be exactly the same thing on that Didsbury the Earl Grey Drive underpass is gonna be covered on both sides with graffiti. So is there a way that the city can kind of discourage it? Because and like in the middle of the night on a weekend, like that's could be like a hangout area that people just those teenagers just loitering and stuff like that. So I don't know if there's a way to prevent that.
Yeah. Well, I sort of have three comments on that. First of all, we have a department at the city that does remove graffiti, right? So if you ever see graffiti, you just call 311 and they will come out and remove it. So I know that's not only what you're saying, but just so you know, there always is a way for city staff to come out and take graffiti off. But secondly, the other is that that tunnel would be used quite a lot by OC Transpo buses. I mean, that is one of the key users of that route, right? And maybe not 24 hours a day, but it wouldn't be the most ideal place to just start painting. But the third thing I would say is that if you look around the city, other tunnels that we have, and I can think about one right now at Metcalf, they the city often does murals, right? And what's an interesting
Yeah.
thing about artists is they don't graffiti over other people's art. It's sort of a law among graffiti artists. So what happens sometimes is the city will have a beautiful mural drawn or painted that the community kind of supports or it's themed for something. And those tend to stay graffiti free. So, and they're also protected so that if there anybody who doesn't understand the rules of graffiti, the graffiti can be removed quite easily. So that those are a couple of things I would say on that. But yes, it is a challenge for sure. But we'll deal with that when we get to it. But I will mention that to our staff if there's anything else they think that they could do to prevent that, and maybe I'll email you back, Lucas.
Yeah, because I would think that would seem like a very neat idea, like encourage like the local artists to like the legitimate artists like that are really like the good artwork to do something in that tunnel area under the Terry Fox Drive to discourage not not very appealing the very maybe the graffiti. So it's to be better. Yeah, I would encourage it if you can, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Lucas.
It's a good point, Kathy just said. I've actually had that happen. It's even more frustrating when they start graffitiing on your buildings as well, because we've had
Mhm.
that happens a lot. And we actually did exactly what Councilor Curry just said. We actually got street art and did like graffiti art on the side of the building. And you know what? We've never had any illegal graffiti being done on top of that since. So it's right. And we did put a coating on there. So in the event someone, a teenager that doesn't really consider himself an artist, he just goes and spray paints his name or something. You can get it removed very easily when you put this coating on. So it is something that I think the city looked at downtown, and it's a great idea.
Well, thanks for that, Joey.
Awesome. I don't see any more questions in the chat or any more hands up. Is there any? Did you have any final last couple of words, Councillor Curry?
Just honestly, thanks everybody. Thanks for the good
Yeah.
questions. Thanks for the good answers. Thanks for taking your time here tonight. And we will get this recording up as soon as we can. If anybody listening here wants to review it again or send it on to anybody, we'll get it up on the kanatanorth.ca website. But thank you all very much. Thanks a lot, Peter and Nick, for setting all this up and getting this to happen.
Thanks, everybody.
Wish you all a good night.
See you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.